And we're live. Thank you for coming back for yet another episode. Ignore all the clatter in the background. That's just Doc being Doc, probably pouring wine or some weird stuff. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. I have that on proper authority, even some licensed clinicians. And so without further ado, we're going to let our guests introduce themselves. We're going to start with alphabetical order. Mr. Jeff Hayes, can you introduce yourselves to our listeners and viewers?
Howdy, my name is Jeff Hayes. I'm an audiobook narrator and producer. I am the CEO and founder of Soundbooth Theater, and I'm probably best known as the narrator of Dungeon Crawler Carl. I work in a lot of lit RPG, and I've done some fantasy, some thrillers, a lot of different genres, but mainly lit RPGs where I live. But I also have been narrating a lot of Sarah King novels.
I hear she's pretty cool. We'll have to ask her. Sarah King, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
I am I'm an Alaskan author that, I started writing when I was 3, and I've put out a lot of novels since then, but I think I've only published 19 of them out of like 31. I just don't like the other ones. And most of them are sci-fi, some fantasy. I've done some thriller, probably best known for The Legend of Zero and Outer Bounds. So, yeah, sci-fi fantasy. I was really big in the indie scene, like 2009. It was like top in the charts there with The Martian. I think it was 2009 something. No. God, I'm getting my dates mixed up. Anyway, it was up there with The Martian and World War Z when those two came out. So I was like, neck and neck with them for like months. But yeah, that's me. Legend of Zero.
The next part of the introduction, dear listener, is how we found them. So I was pulled into meeting them through Doc. And I think, Doc, you knew Sarah first, but can you tell us how you met these two fine people? Because you just set this in motion.
Actually, it was through an army friend of mine, Anna Binder. And so we were in the SDA and we served together at Fort Bliss, and Anna's now retired and up in Alaska, and I got told, you should check out my friend. By the way, she's going to go to Dragon Con. Maybe you guys can hook up. And we were probably in the same room with a bunch of 100 plus other people that we were friends with, and somehow didn't manage to link up because it's a crazy time. But we did make sure, I made a point of trying to reach out, or Sarah made a point. We did link up, Anna. This is proof.
Yes.
So I am not used to calling her by her first name.
Complete dumb luck, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
So it just really kind of one of those weird twists. And then I met Jeff because Sarah's going, you should talk to Jeff because he's awesome and amazing. And I'm like, I don't know who he is, but that's okay. I'm totally game. I actually have several Soundbooth audiobooks. Uh-oh. So it just didn't click. In fact, my second favorite piece of swag is from Soundbooth Audio from Dragon Con this year.
Really?
Seriously?
What is it?
Yes, it is. It's a USB drive with an audiobook on it, but it looks like a cassette tape, and it's my favorite.
Oh, I'm
back
so
one
glad.
second.
Oh, she's got to go get it. So whose idea was it for the cassette tape look?
I'm gonna raise my hand on that one. I think, probably, it was my idea. I'm remembering now. I found.
No, I mean seriously, it came in a case.
Yep, there we go.
And everything.
Yes. Have you listened to it yet?
No, because I put it in the special spot, and then I couldn't find it for a while. I was cleaning my room and found it. I put it in with like the "Do not lose this" box.
Well,
which of course I lost the entire box.
I'm at least proud of you for cleaning your room.
Thank you. Nobody else is.
Jordan Peterson and I approve.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's it. I've never seen anything like that, Doc. I
Yes.
definitely love it.
So the thing is, I was online one day. Well, not. I don't know. Saying that you're online anymore, does that even mean anything?
It means more when
because
you say you're
computers-
offline than when you're on these days.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
does because our phones are always next to us, or we're at our desks or whatever, and there's internet 2 inches away at all times. But anyway, I was trying to think of a way to make a physical audiobook appealing. And then my brain was like, books on tape. Remember that? Remember when you had to have like 12 to 14 cassettes to listen to one book? And then I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if you could make a cassette into a USB? And then I just typed that into the search, and lo and behold, someone had already thought of it. So
Wow.
I went and I got them produced. So what you have there is what we're calling our greatest hits, which is a collection of 8 different first episodes from all of our cinematic audio experiences. Plus, I think one of them is actually Tales from the Battered Mind, which isn't cinematic audio. It's a series of 3 short stories, all by Sarah King, by the way. So you have some Sarah King material with you as we speak. And
Yay! Yeah, no, this was the one where people were fighting over it in the department. They're like, do we have an extra one of these?
Damn it. Did you record
So-
it?
The fight. He
Us
wants to
fighting
fight.
over it? No, we
Yeah.
don't fight like that.
Aw.
We have
think it's good
an
marketing.
infantry. One second. We have a retired infantry NCO and a Marine. We don't fight like that. Throw down. Nobody else is going to survive.
Yeah.
So first, you said that they were episodes. So what do you mean by that? I don't think I've heard that term.
They're like the
They were-
chapters.
Oh, like
Yeah,
chapters.
so here's the thing about what I am calling cinematic audio, which is really just a re-tailored, remarketed way of saying audio drama. And the reason we don't want to say audio drama is because that puts in mind knitting, I think, mainly for most people. So we wanted something sexier, right? Cinematic audio, I think tells you exactly what it is, right? Which is audio that you listen to and you're like, oh man, it sounds like maybe there should be a picture here, but I don't need it because I'm getting everything I need to tell the story. So when we do cinematic audio, obviously it's far more expensive and time consuming to do than simply narrating an audiobook. Most of our audiobooks are multicast already, meaning that we have at least one other narrator backing up the other narrator for the characters of the opposite sex. That's like the bare minimum that we usually do. But sometimes we go crazy and we put a bunch of different people in there. But for our cinematic audio, it's definitely multicast, at least 4 or 5 different actors. We have sound effects, we have music. And so all of that production time means that what we have decided to start doing is release our stuff in smaller serialized chunks, and we're calling those episodes. And we even have 2 different series, Space Buns and Seance High Falls, that were conceived of from the ground up as an audio experience, and so they were actually written episodically instead of us taking a novel and cutting it into chunks.
So since we're talking about it, Doc, we're going to pause on the getting to know them questions because we're going to just dive
No,
in.
I think this is awesome because I don't know if you're familiar with the Atlanta City Radio Theater Company.
No.
But they've done, theirs is more like they do audiobooks as well, but with a cast. And but they're a bunch of they do a lot more classics, like Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress and stuff. But it sounds a lot more like World War of the Worlds, like radio drama.
Right.
Than
right,
it's
right.
than like your audiobooks or even some of these CinemaCast books are, because
Yeah.
you have sound effects and stuff in yours too, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it is our stuff. Our cinematic audio products are basically like a radio show. And it's funny that you mentioned classics because we actually have a production of The Wizard of Oz that's about to be broadcast at Indiana University in
Nice.
That's happening this Saturday, the first episode, and
Which
there's
campus?
there's 4 episodes total. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure. So basically, the extent to which Soundbooth Theater had a hand in producing this one was mainly um, through funding, but also some of our actors played some parts. Really, this is Russ McGee's show. He's been making audio dramas for a good couple decades now, and he's gotten really good at it. And it's been his dream to make The Wizard of Oz happen in audio. And so, I knew Russ from before. We used to run this festival called the Here Now Festival. I was on the board of directors for that for a little bit, and that used to happen in Kansas City. And Russ is actually, I believe he's the president of that now. But we knew each other through that, and he wanted to get this done, and I was looking to test the waters with being just a producer and being relatively hands off on a production, and so he came to me with this, and it seemed like, well, he's passionate enough that I feel like he's going to make a good product. So I play the Wizard of Oz. But everything else, Annie Ellicott is also in it, who she was supposed to come tonight, but she actually couldn't make it. And then Zachary Johnson is another actor that we work with a lot. He's in it as well.
Both of them are amazing.
Yes. And so, yeah, we're in it, but I was pretty hands off as far as production. He already had a plan. He actually adapted the script from the novel itself, so he knew what he was doing, so I trusted him, and people will be able to hear it.
Strange question, because I really want to know with this multiple cast thing. Do you have everybody in the same room?
No, that would be so much fun and such a pain in the ass to edit. Because if everyone's in the same room, then everyone's mic is going to be picking everybody up. So you wouldn't be able to really isolate people's lines. So if we do a scene together, then that would mean we have to get it dead on, every single person, like exactly how we want it to be done, and there'd be no wiggle room as far as editing.
So how is it that you get the byplay kind of between two people? Because I'm assuming you still have dialogue between the individuals.
So the way I do it, which is the cheaper and, in my opinion, more practical way to do it, is I lay down the foundation, usually as the narrator. I do the voices of all the characters, and then all the characters' voices are separated into different tracks, and then when it's time to get the other actors, all of their lines are where I want them, right? They're all placed in the audio space where I want them, so then I just direct them over the internet.
Oh, cool.
And so they record into their own system, they send me those audio files, and then I can just edit them in where I did their voice before, then I just replace myself with them. That's the way I do it. I think that's a rare that may be a rare arrangement. I'm not sure. The way Russ does it is he does get everybody together at once, but we're all online. And so everything's streaming and everyone is recording in their own spaces, so you don't get that bleed through problem that I was talking about where everybody's in the same room. But he is more picky about everyone getting everything done right in the scene. So it's much more expensive and time consuming, but at the end of the day, you have a higher potential of getting a better quality scene out of it.
Okay.
So when you talked about, some of them have been purposely built to be cinematic audio, when they're not, and you're converting other properties, is that something you do on your end? Is that something you make the authors do?
Yes, unfortunately, I am the wearer of all the hats, and I foolishly take it upon myself to take their novel and chop it up and, remove dialogue tags, remove stuff that, can be illustrated through audio, remove direction for the performances. Like if you're reading a novel, when a person speaks, often the author will tell you in what way they're saying it. Oh, with sarcasm. Oh, they're scared, they're shivering, whatever. All of that can be displayed through performance. So it can be removed from the actual narrative. And, it's
Save
actually
time.
better that way.
Do you think that it speeds up the book? Or not significantly?
Oh, it'd probably slow it down.
I don't know. I think it does speed it up, but not significantly. Like, especially if you're the kind of producer who actually makes use of space, who makes use of rhythm, who makes use of, the space between lines when people are talking to each other. We don't just fire back and forth all the time. We say things to each other and we process it and then speak, right? And depending on the situation, we take different amounts of time to process, and the more you actually use that, the more natural the scene feels. So it's really a matter of you can manipulate rhythm a lot more without having to put in these dialogue tags all over the place that break up the conversation.
So, how do you ensure that you keep true to the vision of whoever wrote it? Is that something that you involve them with, or is it just your years of experience allow you to do that?
Yeah,
Well, he's just taking out dialogue tags. I mean, that's not a big thing, really.
that's
Well,
it depends. Like, so when I first started off, I took out very little, and then the longer I've gone, the more I've discovered what's necessary and what's not to leave in the narration. And in the case of series like Earth Force, which is on our platform right now, we have two seasons of that series right now. They're available in both standard audiobook form, which is just me doing the voices, and cinematic audio, which is after I've done the adjustments. So if an author doesn't like one version, doesn't like what I've done with their cinematic audio, well, they have the word for word version as well, so they're less likely to complain, I guess.
so when you go to the cinematic version, does it affect the pacing at all?
Yeah, I think so. For me, as an audio file, right, as a person who, I got into narrating kind of on a whim. Like, I needed a job, but like I didn't want to get a real job, so I went on the internet and looked for things to do, and voice acting seemed kind of cool, so I started doing it, and then I discovered it was amazing, and I had a lot of fun, and I just blazed my trail. But I started off as a musician. That was what I always wanted to do, and I recorded many different songs with my band before I started narrating. So I already had the gear, I already had the experience, and I already had an aesthetic that I followed as far as audio before I started narrating, and I think that's why I got a leg up, because I already am very picky and snobby about sound in the first place.
So
Yeah.
we've actually, what's that, Sarah?
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. Like,
Somebody's got to be. So
yeah,
It's not
he's
me.
like my editor on steroids.
I will say that the books that I narrated after I had my first book out, an audiobook, like the way I write has changed, because now I think about things like word echoes and some of the phraseology that looks good on paper, but then you realize your narrator's going to cuss you out if you leave that in.
Yeah,
I actually had a narrator. Go ahead, Sarah.
redundancy. Redundancy is what has really hit me the hardest as I'm watching Jeff do my books. It's like, you say table 3 times in one paragraph, and it just it rakes across your brain. And it's not so visible in the written word, but when you're literally listening to every word rather than just skimming through, yeah, the redundancy really, it just it drives me nuts. I'm trying really hard to avoid that now. Yeah.
And I also found that some things like names, like I have a friend who's a fellow author from Sri Lanka, so I used his name, and I got a very nasty call from the narrator about how the hell he was supposed to pronounce that in the day and age where people get really mad if you're wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, just use his first name and make that a last name, and we'll move on. because I don't always pronounce it right, and we've been friends for a couple of years. So I start thinking about those things since that call, because the last thing you want is a narrator not happy with you, because that, if you make their job easier, you're more likely to get work, to get people willing to work with you.
Do you go back and ask the authors? Like, I know I was talking with Davis Ashura one time, and he said, yeah, I started adding in accents into my character descriptions because my narrator got really annoyed with me. And he goes, everybody sounds blood the same. Do you have any accents for these guys? I'm like,
yes,
okay.
That is a very selfish request that us narrators prefer to have, a lot of variety in accents when it comes to characters.
As a listener, I like it because otherwise, to be honest, you can, particularly if somebody is doing a diatribe, you're like, wait, which character is that again?
Yeah.
Because I can cheat in a book and just go, wait, which character is it? And look and go, oh, it's that one.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it is also that, it's a narrators don't often practice character voices, specific characterizations. I would say that it's rare and very very appreciated by listeners when narrators are able to do that and do decide to do that.
How many? I think this is kind of important. Like, so you're like cream of the crop when it comes to doing the voices. How many people on ACX are actually trying to be narrators right now? Because I think it was like hundreds of thousands, and
I bet you could count it as hundreds of thousands if you look at every single producer account that was made. But you have to remember, think of how many times you've created an account on a website and never looked at it ever again.
It's a huge freaking playing field right now. Like, I had to go through dozens and dozens, and I didn't find any narrators I liked with the books. I mean, I found one that would have worked, and then another that would have worked for a different series. But then I had 5 of my fans like all pipe in around the same time when they found out that my Zero series had like come back on the market for audio rights. They were like, you have to go with Jeff Hayes at Soundbooth Theater. You have to. I'm like, who the fuck is that? Like, what? Who? I don't. And so like the first 4 of them, I just like blew them off. I was like, yeah, right, whatever. Just go away. Stop talking to me. I'm actually nicer than that, but normally like when I get like these notes out of the blue, it's just crap. But this time, like after the 5th person was like, you have to go with Jeff Hayes at Soundbooth Theater, I was like, oh, fine. I don't know who this is, but I'll send him a freaking, message, because one of them made me promise, and I was like, all right, whatever. And then I was a freaking bitch on the phone because I had no idea who you were. I was just like, yeah, you want to do my book? Why? Like, I had no idea that like he was one of the top in the business, and it just, I have no idea about audiobooks or anything, but it's been opening up this whole new world of, wow, this is really cool stuff, because I had not been able to get into like listening to audiobooks because it was like this librarian drone like 99% of the time, and it's just every time I turned it on I was like, oh god, I can't listen to that, and I'll shut it off, right? But then I started listening to Jeff do my books, and I was like, holy fuck, this is awesome. This is great. So yeah, he's doing something really different with Soundbooth Theater. It's not the same as like, so I didn't know that there was a difference between voice actors and narrators. So like ACX and Audible, they're hiring narrators like 99% of the time, right? It's like, so you're hiring voice actors specifically to do audiobooks, right? I think that's the major difference.
Okay, so here's the thing. Narrators insist that they are voice actors, and I agree in that they are voice actors who specialize in a specific technique.
Or one voice?
No, some of them. I mean, some of them use very different voices. I think
some of them do. Some of them are very good at it. Yeah,
like Nick Odell will tell you he's a narrator, not an actor, and he does a lot of different. And he is tortured by at least one of his authors, because Robert Ross will point blank go, I want to see this British Kenyan accent. And he's going, are you serious?
Yeah. See, okay, but here's the difference. For me, I'm like, oh, really?
Oh no, I think it's one of those, because they're really good friends. I've talked to both of them at once, and I think it's one of those like picking on, like Robert wrote a scene so that Nick had to sing in three distinct female different voices, and then them to create a chorus. So he's like, I'm just challenging you. You said you wanted a challenge, and he's like,
Oh man.
So
that sounds like
so
much fun.
So what's your process when you get a manuscript? Do you do anything or do you just like look at it? And obviously you do inflections and stuff when you're doing your first read through, the non-cinematic stuff. Is there any prep work you have to do once you get the novel before you're ready for that? Like, what's your behind the scenes? Because I've always been curious, and none of the narrators I've talked to have ever like spilled the beans, so to speak.
Yeah. First of all, any new narrators out there, do as I say, not as I do. When I would say the first 5 years of my career, I've painstakingly pre-read everything, and it got to a point where I couldn't anymore because I started a production company, and that took so much more of my time, as well as, I mean, like, not only that, but the longer I've been narrating, I became more in demand. So more jobs were coming in for me, and I'm like producing and making deals with other people that I'm not even doing the narration for. I'm just doing a voice here and there. So I got really busy, and I discovered that I'm really great at cold reading. I discovered that. I did not plan on it, and it just happened. So now I 1 out of 10 books, maybe 1 out of 8 books I pre-read. But I will say that there's a good 2 or 3% quality difference when I pre-read a book than to if I'm reading it cold. And for me, that's a big difference. For me, that's like, this is not I'm not like bragging here. This is something that I'm a bit ashamed of, that I don't pre-read as much as I should. But pre-reading, what that does is it prepares you for the tone of the book as you go along. It prepares you for the tone of each individual scene, the order the scenes go in. It's important. Your tone is still, important in those contexts. Then who the characters are. Sometimes there's like a heel turn. Sometimes you got a secret bad guy talking in chapter 1, and then you don't find out they're the bad guy till, chapter 20. And, if you'd known they were a bad guy in the first place, you might add a little extra bad guy flavor to their voice just to give people a little hint. I think that's a little on the nose, but my point is there are things that you learn throughout reading the entirety of a novel that can inform choices that you would make in the beginning. And also, as I'm reading, I'm getting to know the characters, and I can develop their voice in my head much better as I'm going along, as I'm pre-reading. And if I start narrating a book and I already feel like I know the characters, then it's much easier for me to zip along. And it's not just about speed of narration, it's about being confident in the character choices that I'm making. So pre-read, narrators, always pre-read.
Yeah.
So like a standard template you give your authors and say, hey, this would really help me if you give me this information about the various characters?
Nope. I tell them, give me as much information as you can about your characters. Tell me.
Oh, you'd be drowning in documents from me. That would be bad.
No, I would love it. I would love it, because again, this is kind of the difference for me, is like, every little project is a puzzle. It's a problem solving opportunity for me, and you're giving me the opportunity to be prepared before I encounter this character that I'm about to be. I want to be that character to the best of my ability. So you give me the more details you give me, that's all just tools. It's all just information for well, not actually. It's more like I know which tools in my toolbox I need to pull out for that character at that time.
So there's been a lot of push towards a lot of authors and creators are trying to do more direct to customer sales because the percentages that you get from some of the big companies who we will not badmouth on the show, but everyone knows who I'm talking about, are not always the greatest, especially when it comes to audiobooks. So do you guys at Soundbooth Audio offer any kind of like direct to consumer sales on your website?
100%.
It's funny that you said that.
Yeah, funny that you mention it. So I have been for the past 2.5 years developing Soundbooth Theater's own app, and we have a market on our website. You can buy certain things directly from us, and we don't have to share that money with anybody except for the transaction fees, and then the authors, of course. And let me tell you what, there's a good reason why some certain people take a big chunk of the profits, because it is hard work making one of these platforms go.
I believe you.
Essentially, you have to think about it, billions of dollars, decades of development into their system. They're in position, no doubt about it. And, whatever complaining we can all do, the only thing that matters is whether we put our money where our mouths are. And that's not just money going there. It's stress and time making deals, getting to know authors, selling people on the idea that they can make money on your platform. And that's not easy to do.
They basically have to convince authors like me that it's better to take the hit to, like, I don't know, Audible has like these avenues that you're going to get a lot more publicity out there.
Yeah, if you do like Audible exclusive, and then they weight you higher in the algorithm, and if you produced it from somebody else, not through Audible, even though it's an Audible exclusive, they weight it differently.
Yep. So it's like this massive monopoly that, the only way you're gonna get around having a monopoly is to actually, like, take the chance. And I'm all for taking big chances like that. So I'm like, all my stuff is getting migrated to Soundbooth Theater, and I feel really good about that. I think it's a really cool thing to be doing from like the ground up. I'm trying to get my friends, I have a lot of author friends. I'm trying to convince them, okay, ditch the big corporations and let's go, independent. And they're like, I don't know about that. It's like, it's really hard to convince people to like break away from the system. But me, I'm in all the way. Like that's just the way I am.
Well, I think that's one of the things I've talked to Veronica Jaguar. I'm probably butchering her last name, so sorry, V. Who's the narrator I've worked with before, and she narrates some. That's how I found her. She narrates Terry Mixon stuff, and I absolutely love the work she does. If I wrote more female characters, I'd definitely hire her. And one of the things I've realized, through sourcing it on your own, it's very hard for up and coming authors to make any money at audio. Most of the time, it's a money loss because the amount of money you spend to produce it, and then Amazon's taking such a big cut, or Audible specifically, and it's almost to the point where I know a lot of smaller time authors are thinking, well, maybe this AI stuff gives me a chance to at least have something out there. Although I've listened to some of the AIs, and it's not the same quality as what you get.
No.
If a human does it, they don't get the inflection and stuff. And
It's
so I don't
also
think the
not
technology is
as bad
there.
as humans can be either.
True.
Yeah, that's so true.
I've heard some. So I don't know. It's an interesting issue. What is the audiobook market? Because on the one hand, you want that what Jeff's talking about bringing to it, which is that personality, that sense of excitement that you can get through the way the person reads the book to you. Whereas AI is going to be kind of robotic. But on the other hand, like the barrier to entry is so high that there's a lot of good books. And I know plenty of people, because I've got some of my readers that are visually challenged. And if it's not an audiobook, they can't read it. And there are a lot of good books they'll never get access to, because until we find a solution that's viable for, more people, it's just unfortunate.
Well,
so I like that you're trying to be that solution.
Yeah, working with Jeff opened up this massive new audience that I didn't even know existed. They're blind, or they're driving all the time, or
A lot of truckers,
traveling. Yeah.
That's how I got into audiobooks. Is somebody goes, "Oh, well, you live in Atlanta according to your bio," and I went, yeah. And they went, "It's not creepy. It's really in your bio." They sent me a screenshot to prove that they weren't being creepy, that it was right there, open and honest. I'm like, I believed you. It's okay.
Yeah.
And they were like, "But you live in Atlanta, which means you have traffic." And like, fair enough. They're like, they went, "Please just try it." And I'm like, oh, okay. This person was so earnest, and I couldn't really argue with that. I didn't have to drive in traffic anyways. So that got me hooked. But yeah, it is interesting, some of it. And
did you ever download that one from Soundbooth? I think I either sent it to you or gifted it to you or something. I think it was Vampire Queen.
I did, but I have not gotten to it yet. I promised that I would get to it, and then I haven't been listening to audiobooks because I've been working on some other things so much that there's too many voices in my brain trying to figure out other things.
Oh man. So that was just an extraordinary, it's a perfect example of how Jeff and Annie play off of each other. And
it is.
Oh my God.
I heard like a snippet of it, and then just things got crazy, and I ended up having to switch to an educational book for something else that I was studying. Life gets weird.
Yeah. No, it's like, if I had to give an example of like a really, really good production that they have done, that would be the one that I send people to, which is, that's why I sent you to it. It's like, wow, this is what they do. This is really good. Yeah, I was shocked at how awesome those two played off of each other in that book.
Yeah, Sarah, can you what do you can you tell them a little bit more about Vampire Queen?
Vampire Queen. Okay, so I'm a sci-fi author that I'm very logical, and I'm not really into the heavy romance genre. I think, okay, well, if vampires really existed, they wouldn't be nice people, because they literally have to feed off of people to survive, and nobody that's immortal and they have all this money because they've accumulated it over time, they're just not going to be nice people. So I was like, I never thought it was very realistic, like the vampire genre, and I freaking hated it. So what I did was, at book number 30 or so, I was like, all right, I'm going to write a vampire story that's not the usual vampire story. I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do something that's totally not genre. And it's just my take on a vampire story. And I like to explore it was the idea of immortality creating mental trauma in people, because for instance, the people that go to Valhalla, right? They're supposed to be stuck in this never-ending fight forever, right? Odin and Freyja, they'll have these people in this never-ending fight. And it's like, how is that going to affect somebody's psyche if they're just stuck in this fight forever, this never-ending battle? So there's a lot of Norse mythology in there. There's a lot of basically, I stole little tidbits of mythology from all over the world and stuffed it in this vampire story, which so it's not a normal vampire story. So it's not what you think. You see Vampire Queen, you're like, oh my God, it's going to be another fucking Twilight or something. But no, I promise you, it is not. It's very different.
Well, I think
can only be one Twilight.
It's.
because I can't handle more than that.
I think the
So
samurai
honestly-
sword on the cover is a dead giveaway that it's not a typical
Oh, yeah.
vampire
No.
story.
Though, I mean, honestly, I will say this: anything that gets people hooked on reading,
Yeah.
I will tolerate anything that gets people hooked on reading that is not twisted in a bad way.
So, given how you described that, Sarah, were you inspired by the TV series The Highlander?
The Highlander.
Yeah, it talks
Um,
about the effects of immortality and how it changes people.
No,
That's a theme in the
actually.
show.
I think
Oh,
I
you gotta
was
go watch-
probably 7 when that movie came out. Like,
Well, there's a
I
TV
don't.
series too in the
Show,
90s.
too.
Oh no, I haven't seen the TV. I don't watch. I'm in Alaska. I don't watch a lot of TV or anything. I have like stuff to do outside and stuff. So I don't. I'm not a TV
I feel like
fan.
she just said I have important good stuff to be doing.
No, it's not like that.
Damn.
It's not like I have chickens. I raise chickens. It's my hobby. I have ninja chickens that are like the black skinned ones. And have you ever seen the
No,
YouTube where you like call the chickens and like thousands of them come out of the woodwork like fucking cockroaches? Yeah, those are my chickens.
you have
That's-
all the eggs.
what?
Yeah,
You have all the eggs.
she's an egg
Oh,
bearer
yeah.
now.
Yeah, I just had my first batch of the year just hatched yesterday. I'm so excited.
So you're hatching them and not eating them.
Well, my dog eats them.
Savage. All right. So what was it like, Sarah, when you were working with Jeff in Soundbooth Theater? Like, what was that experience like for you?
Eye-opening. I had no idea how much work went into it. Because I'd watched Jeff like retake the same line and cuss at the same line at least like 30 times in a row, just like, getting to the point where he's like steaming and gonna like fucking go to the bathroom or something to get out of the booth because he's having a serious issue. I had no idea, but that it just like it makes sense to me because that's what I do with the writing. If something's not working, I will literally stare at that same freaking paragraph or that same sentence for half an hour sometimes until I can get it right. And then apparently I still don't get it completely right because then when Jeff tries to read it out loud, it doesn't come out right. Like today when he was doing the ad, I wrote an ad for him for the Zero series, and he was trying to. I guess one of the lines that I wrote was like it should have had like 3 breath moments in it to take a breath, but it had none. So like watching him go red faced as he's trying to like get this all out in like the really gruff, deep military voice.
Like this.
And
I'm
getting
speaking
squeaky.
like this.
Yeah, he's getting squeaky at the end. It was really funny, but sad because I felt bad because I wanted to fix it, but I was on my phone and I didn't have my computer.
It worked out in the end.
It did.
So we've interviewed. This is before Doc came on the show. Back when we were the Sci-Fi Shenanigans, we interviewed a Miss Jay Koyangi. I'm probably butchering her name, so if you're listening, Jay, sorry. And she worked with a company called Serial Box Productions, which was basically doing what you're calling cinematic audio, but they were almost like episodic scripts, like what you used to get when people would around the big box radio.
I believe they rebranded. I think. Oh, what is the name of their studio now? Oh man. Ooh, I'll remember. I will. But yeah, I know.
But so one of the things they did, because they were releasing episodically, and if you're charging full audiobook prices for that, I mean, you've just priced yourself out of the market. Like if you're spending $20 to $30 a book, and it's not like it's just one episode. So one of the things their solution to obviously they offered subscription services. Mm-hmm. Is that something you guys do over at Soundbooth Theater, or maybe are planning for?
Not yet.
For your stuff, since you're doing the episodic?
We have a different subscription model planned. We haven't incorporated it yet. First of all, we do not charge $15 to $20 per episode. I think the most we've charged for an episode was $5. And that one was, I believe, 3.5 hours long. Each of our episodes range from 45 minutes to about 2 hours on average. And we charge something like $2.99 on average, I'd say, per episode. The current subscription model we're looking at and looking to incorporate in our platform and our market at the moment is more like you're subscribing to a magazine where
Right.
you subscribe. It costs you nothing to subscribe, but what that means is the next release, the next episode that comes out in that series, it gets automatically added to your library, and you're automatically charged a discounted rate for the episode. So let's say we haven't decided a percentage, but let's say it's 20%. That means that if each episode is $2.99, then you're getting 60 cents off each episode, right? And you can
So if
you can
someone
cancel
wanted,
anytime.
oh, go ahead.
The idea is you can cancel anytime. So like if we jump the shark in the middle of the series and you're like, what is this garbage? Then you can unsubscribe. You don't have to spend anymore. But really, all this is about for us is making it easier for people to purchase, and making it easier for people to commit to some to a whole series, and it's just about. I don't like putting it this way, but it kind of is. It's almost like you're removing the pain from the purchase by just saying, hey, look, just hit the button, forget about it. You're gonna get your content. You're gonna be happy.
It's like JR's buy all button that he wants Amazon to put in for authors.
What?
Buy all, like buy their entire
author's
entire catalog is what you mean.
Honestly,
go to the author profile, just click buy all.
We have that button. We have that button for our series. Yeah, we have a buy all button for series.
So
there you go,
mentioned
JR.
that you could
please come use it.
There you go. So you mentioned that Doc, calm down. You mentioned that you could subscribe. When they subscribe, are they subscribing to like the Soundbooth Theater newsletter that does it? Is it
Just
by
the series.
Individual series that they're subscribing?
It's
so they can a la carte which ones they want.
Exactly. We don't see.
JR, shush.
Yeah, I don't like the idea. So for me, I think that the subscription model for media, where you just pay a certain amount and then you have access to their entire library, I think that's in ways exploitative towards not just consumers but the creators, right? Like you never know how much a purchase is worth. You never know what a person's patronage is really worth. And a lot of the time people will, like, for instance, myself, I have a lot of subscriptions to different things, and I maybe use each of those things once or twice a month max, right? And so on the surface, the potential for me to take advantage of the $15 a month it requires for me to have a Netflix subscription, yeah, potentially I could watch an entire series every day. And that $15 is stretched really far, and I think that's the way they try and sell it to you. But in reality, I have stuff to do, so it doesn't matter how many things I'm
very important stuff,
right? So like, I can't watch all the series. I can't make that $15 a month worth what I spent.
So it takes a lot of time to write a book, and it takes a lot of time, I've noticed, to narrate a book. So it's like both of our creative endeavors are like huge time sinks. Like you literally, like, you have to look at it like it's gonna take 3 weeks, 4 weeks to write this book, or in his case narrate this book. And it's just most people don't think of that when they're thinking that writer over there, why aren't they putting out the next book or something. It's time intensive. It takes a lot of sitting your ass in the seat and actually like putting the words down, or in his case narrating them. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear it, but I think my dog is barking at a moose in the background. I just hope he doesn't jump the fence and go after it. Yep.
That certainly has me very worried for your dog.
Oh yeah. They'll kill him. I almost ran into it on my walk to the barn today. I've got this like really narrow little path and like 3.5 feet of snow in either direction. And so if that moose caught us on the path, we would die because it's faster and it's got really long legs and it can just like plow through the snow, and a human being is just going to flounder. So, yeah, I hope he doesn't jump the fence and go after that moose. That's all.
Well,
Like,
that's definitely an adventure, and get a taller fence. No, I'm kidding.
well, it's Alaska, so we get a lot of snow.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I have an NCO who used to tell a story about being at Fort Drum and that he was there. He reported in winter, and then went home on vacation, and there was this great thaw, and he goes, there were fences that I'd never seen.
yeah, exactly. So,
I am desperately curious, Jeff, how many accents can you do?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
I think I've heard him do like 60, just listening to him. But whatever. I'm like, just like,
I don't know.
He can take all these different accents, and then he can add like different inflections, and he can add different like what would you call that? A pitch? So it's like multiplied. He can do a shit ton.
Yeah, so if we're talking specifically accents, I'm going to say I have 10 accurate ones.
I got to check on my dog.
Go check on the dog, because we love doggies here, and we love doggies. Go make sure doggy's still alive.
Yeah, so I think I can do 10 accurately, and I'm pretty good at faking a good number more than that. It really is about just kind of thinking about regions, thinking about people, playing with rhythm and melody. Those are a little bit more important than the actual, vowel and consonant sounds. Like having a convincing, relaxed melody and really putting the character in there. Like making sure that you get the person out of the accent. And I think that a lot of accent inaccuracies are easily forgiven if your character feels real. So 10 maybe accurately, but like I use those 10 accurate ones to make up and fake.
Yeah, to make
accents.
up
He multiplies.
Yeah.
A bunch of it. Like I had a teacher who was from out, but he spoke Queen's English, and it was different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the UK has so many different accents, and that's probably where most of where I'm counting most of the accurate accents from is the UK, and then of course here in the US we have a few.
So
I think there were like at least 20 just in the first Legend of Zero. Well, if you combine like the first two Legend of Zeros, there was at least like maybe 30 just in those two.
Probably not. I mean maybe voices, but not.
Yeah,
not
voices.
Accents.
I'm sorry, not accents, but voices. I mean, yeah, it was really impressive.
For Zero, I leaned a lot on German for the Ureki.
Yeah.
That was and I actually for the Dasha as well. I did some Russian, definitely did some Scottish for the Baga characters, which turned out to be one of my favorites to do. And I think that's pretty much. Oh, and then some Northern English and English, of course, like Queen's English, right? And then, up north they have actually an older accent. The Queen's English, the posh British, is relatively new in the history of the UK. Famously, this was an accent that was introduced by a certain king, who I don't know who the king is, but like people weren't allowed to make fun of him, so they just kind of imitated him for clout, and eventually it became the accent.
They did that.
They
did that with Castilian. Sorry, they did that with Castilian Spanish too. The king.
The lisp, the lisp thing.
Yeah. So, what did you say your favorite was?
It varies. Currently, my favorite might be Scottish. Before that, it would have been Irish. I really like.
What did you do for Forgotten? What was his accent,
Forgotten,
or what was
that was a Northern English. So
God, I love that
That's the
one. That
one
was
that I was saying that it's a bit older
yeah.
than the posh British one. The Northerners would make fun of the Southern Londoners because they use a lot more of the R sounds, like bath, grass, right? Grass, bath. It's same as us Yanks over here, with the Northern accent. So
Every time I hear Forgotten's lines, I just go squee inside. It's like, yeah, it's awesome. I just love his like, man, you just nailed those so well. It was like some of the most potent scenes in the entire series, and you just like fucking hit it like right on. That was awesome. Just freaking awesome. Made me
I'm
very
like
happy.
Babe Ruth, man. I just love hitting those home runs.
Out of the park.
Love him.
Yeah.
So getting back a little bit, and then we're going to need to wind this up, but this sounds great, and we'd love to have you guys on again. JR had to step out, and he told me that he loved having you guys on, so thank you for coming. And if our listeners have a lot of questions, we may end up making more of these episodes if you'll come and humor us and our crazy questions.
Yeah,
Sure.
Just give us plenty of lead time.
So yeah, this was fun. So if an author is going, hey, I this sounds really awesome, I really want to get my book in with you guys, the process for them is going to be a little bit like, I understand there's going to be like some nitty and some gritty and some contract stuff, but like the general overarching process is going to look something like they email you and send you their manuscript and say, by the way, I love you, please pick me, or what?
All of that helps. But what's going to help even more is numbers, right?
Be a bit.
We have to see what else you've published. Whether it be traditional or indie through Amazon. We have to see rankings and stuff. We have to see basically evidence that it's going to be profitable for us, because we do work on a royalty share basis, just like any other independent audiobook production company out there. However, in the near future, it's going to be a lot harder for us to take on work, because we are we're trying to be risk averse at the moment because of how much risk we're putting into the platform itself. We're building it out more and more, and any production we take on, we put a lot of effort into, and we put a lot of money into. And so we do need to see like some momentum. Do you have a fan base? Do you have a Patreon? Do you have are you on Royal Road, and do you have followers there? Do you have a really tight newsletter that, when I say tight, I mean like, are your fans engaged? Are your fans opening your newsletter? Or we need to see basically profitability in whatever you send to us. But we also need to really like the work itself. I'm getting pickier and pickier as I grow older, and as I continue to hone my craft. So I really I try, like I'm kind of, I mean, I say I'm picky, right? But I'm also like nice. I hate being nice. It's the worst. Because then like people send me things, and I'm like kind of interested. I think this concept is cool, and then I'm kind of used to like, forgiving authors for writing that I don't necessarily like, and so I'll like find a place in my heart for your manuscript, and like, I hate that. I can't stand that about myself. But point is, it's gotta hit on both, right? It's gotta be marketable, and it's gotta be well crafted.
Yeah, well, because we've had some authors come on, and like there was one who, she does cyberpunk. She goes, there'll never be an audiobook because too much of what she does is like text messages with the abbreviations, and she goes, it just doesn't translate.
Okay, so we just released a free cinematic audio called S1R3N, and 95% of it is text messages.
Oh, wow.
So go ahead and check that out. It's free. It's by an author named Ben Wolf, and yeah, we can do it. Like there's no. That's the thing. The things that are challenging in audio, we can do it. It's just, is it going to sound
Okay.
good? That's the question.
Yeah.
I think we made S1R3N sound good. So yeah, that's the weird thing, is not only are we looking for crazy interesting things, but we're creative when we know how to deal with interesting problems.
No, that's awesome and amazing. So I feel like we just touched the top of the iceberg, but I also feel we got a ton of great information from you, because this is where we normally would ask, is there anything we didn't cover? But I feel like there's a lot we didn't cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel greedy. Sarah needs some more.
I know Sarah's like, oh, we can just stay because it's not going to take that much longer. Sarah, we will have you back to talk about any of your books that you want to talk about, because
also, if you have her here on her own, then she can start telling you about all the bad things that comes with working with Soundbooth Theater and working with me. She'll tell you some stories.
Actually, I have stories about other voice actors that really fucked me over like hardcore, and that's why I was such a bitch to Jeff when he like contacted me.
I admit this. You're giving them. I mean, the joke I make with all my author friends when they publish a new book is, "Oh, congratulations on your book, baby."
Yeah.
But it's true, because it is your baby. You've put your sweat, your blood, and often a lot more than 9 months of gestation time into it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like this. Do you want me to tell the story here of how I eventually, trusted Soundbooth Theater enough to do the books after getting like screwed over for, God, it's like $11,000 by voice actors.
I mean, you don't have to, but if you
want,
it
was bad. So
at a time, you can do it.
Yeah, so my fans basically, they knew about how like 2 different voice actors had kind of, screwed me over, and one of them had held on to the rights of the Zero series for 7 years until the ACX contract expired. And he didn't do the books. Like ACX, like so he took my money, which I should have seen as a scam from the beginning, but then he wouldn't release the rights. Or with so I wanted my money back, but the only way I could prove that he had taken my money is by keeping the contract going. And ACX is like, well, we can just cancel this contract because he clearly hasn't done the work. And I'm like, but he it'll just dissolve, and then there's no proof that he was going to do it, and there was this agreement. And so for 7 years, I was basically in this limbo of hell. And that was all my books, not just Zero. So when I had a really poor view of voice actors in general. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, another voice actor. I was just going to not get anything done in audio ever, because I was just so frustrated with that. They seemed like con artists to me. Like all of them must be con artists, because two of two ended up screwing me over. So I don't know. Jeff's told some stories about how a lot of the
You're muted. There you go.
Third time was a charm for you, that's for sure.
Yeah. So sorry, so Jeff told me some stuff about how there's some cons going on in the voice acting community, not you guys, but obviously not you guys, but they'll
take me. If it was you, she would not have hesitated to call you out on it.
Yeah.
No, that's for sure.
That's true. But I can't remember what they were, but you were telling me that they'd take books from authors and then pretend to own the book, and then get some voice actor involved for some reason. I don't remember what the con was, but it sounded pretty awful.
It's really not a con. It's just a method that okay, so they will sign an author, right, and then they'll get a narrator to do it in royalty share, right, but they know that it's not going to make very much money, right? And we're talking about like a publisher. And so it ties up that book's rights with a narrator who's inexperienced, who's not going to do a very good job. And so it's just a product out there making maybe a little bit of money for the publisher and making virtually no money for either the narrator or the author who actually put work into it, is what I'm saying. That's I don't, I wouldn't call that a scam.
Yeah,
per
it-
se.
I think you
It's just-
okay. So I got it wrong. You were talking about how authors that didn't claim their books, they can, like, if you go on ACX, you can literally claim like any book as your own.
That's true.
And so people were going on ACX, which is where you do the narrating thing. I don't know how much you know about the narrating business, but so authors will go on ACX and they're supposed to claim only their own books, but these people would claim like other people's books. They weren't getting caught, and then they were presenting those books as their own and looking for narrators, right?
Yep.
And then some poor narrator would put a bunch of time into it, and they start making some royalties when they get it published.
Yep.
And then the book gets yanked.
Yeah.
The narrator put all that time into it. The random Joe that stole the book still gets those royalties.
Yeah,
but
they get banned. They get banned. I mean, like ACX brings the hammer down, but they can just start a new account.
Right. Yeah.
So we're unfortunately running out of time, but I wanted to give everybody here an opportunity to tell us where our listeners, because we do know that they like to listen to things, can find both of you. So let's go with Sarah, and then we're going to go with Jeff, because I'm quite sure he has a long list of, please go here.
So you can just search me on Amazon, Sarah King. But what I really like to push nowadays, because my Amazon fan base is pretty like rock solid, I push for people to go check out Soundbooth Theater, because honestly, what they're doing makes the words on my page, like, it literally depresses me to read my own work after I hear what, like, say Annie and Jeff do. Like, it's like they put the color into it that it just doesn't have when it's on my page. So, like, I have aphantasia, which means I can't see images in my head. So I shit you not, when I'm listening to those two do one of my books, I can literally fucking see it. It is amazing. So I send as many people as I can that way, because it takes something that was pretty good to start and it just makes it phenomenal. So I love their stuff. I just send people to Soundbooth Theater. Just go there.
Yeah, that's all I got to say too. Soundbooththeater.com. I could look. All right, real quick. I'll be real with you. Where we make all our money is Audible, right? Dungeon Crawler Carl is kind of taking over the world right now on Audible. I'm gonna be talking to Audible personally next week to see about maybe doing a different deal with Dungeon Crawler Carl that could get it even further out there. But I mean, if you haven't checked that out, please do. You will. It is the first lit RPG that I've ever narrated that I would recommend to absolutely anyone. Lit RPG is such a niche genre, and don't get me wrong, I like it, but there's plenty out there that someone who doesn't like it would say, why is this happening to me? Right? Dungeon Crawler Carl is in no way that way. It is easy to follow and incredibly compelling. But really, go to soundbooththeater.com, because that's where we need more people. I mean, Audible has as much reach. You know what? There's going to be plenty of people picking up Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah, go indie.
Go indie. Go soundbooththeater.com. Pick up Sarah King stuff on there. Vampire Queen, Alaskan Fury, Alaskan Fire. We're going to have Zero Marked, Forging Zero, and Zero Recall on there by Tuesday.
I do not write lit RPG, by the way. That's not me.
All of Sarah King stuff is either sci-fi or fantasy.
Right.
And there's just so much stuff on our platform now. It's been 2.5 years of us building stuff up, and tons of short stories, tons of audiobooks, tons of cinematic audio, including Kaiju Battlefield Surgeon, The Stars Have Eyes. Like, just go and investigate. There's plenty for all sorts of people to find.
So as we bring this to a close, thank you guys for being, dear listener, dear viewer, for being patient as my internet crapped out because Windows wanted to do an update. Yay! So quick question for you, Jeff. Does Soundbooth sell ebooks as well? So that way anybody that would do I guess Audible has the Whisper Sync, if you're familiar, where they can listen and read and it pairs it up. Do you sell ebooks so you can do an equivalent through your platform?
We do not yet.
Okay.
That is a whole new beast to tackle. It's gonna be a while before we find that to be a profitable venture.
But I volunteer.
Sarah wants to do it with us. So.
I do it.
Can people leave reviews on Soundbooth, or do they need to go over to Amazon and all the other places?
Absolutely. They can leave reviews at soundbooththeater.com. We not only we have the same basic format that Audible does, where you can rate the story on its own, the production on its own, or actually we have one more category, which is narration. So production and script and narration, and then there's the overall score is actually it calculates it takes the average of all those. So
nice. And so because we're talking about reviews, dear listener, dear viewer, it's that time again. So we'd ask you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. They help the right readers find the right books. So do your part. And I hear every time they get their 100th review over there on Soundbooth Studio, he cooks up some unicorn steaks for his authors and his narrators, and we wouldn't want to deprive them. So do your part, people. All right, Doc. We forgot to tell them how they could find us. See what you meant? You messed me up.
Yes.
Doc. It's all your fault. I don't know how.
I did
but it's
nothing. It's not my fault. Your brain is so defective. Blame Papa Army.
So, it's probably the Army's fault, but we'll just move on. You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. We have a Facebook group where all the shenanigans happen at facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, /groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. We also have a similarly named Facebook page. If that's more your style, go over, like, follow, do the thing so we can get a dedicated URL over there. We have a website over at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where for as little as 99 cents a month, you can help keep the lights on. Or you can support the show more directly over at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put it in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts, Doc Cisca and Nick Garber, duly caffeinated. They will drink until their bladder explodes. All right, Doc, bring us home.
So thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. Please like, follow, and give us some questions or comments if you want to have them back, and what questions you would want to have about Soundbooth and just audiobooks in general. So on behalf of the absentee Nick Garber, who is home with the flu or some weirdness like that, what mundane thing like that, and the addle-brained JR, I'm Cisca, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. And don't forget to order extra pineapple on your pizza because JR likes it like that. Yes, he